As calls for a more united Europe grow stronger, Astra Europa seeks to bring a classical liberal alternative to the European Federalist vision. In this interview, we spoke with Matthias Matthiesen about Astra Europa on Forum Europeum.
So hello everyone, this is the newest episode of the Forum Europeum podcast, and today we are going to speak with Matthias Matthiesen from Astra Europa, a new pan-European federalist movement. And thank you very much for your participation in today's episode.
It was great to be here.
My very first question would be the following. As we can see, there are multiple so-called federalist parties or pan-European parties in Europe in 2026. The Volt, which is quite established, I would say, and the Ave Europa, which is more on the right, and we also spoke with them. So, recently, on the 9th of May, Astra Europa was born. So my main question would be the following: why? Why did you think that it's necessary to create this movement?
Because we don't think that there is anything quite like Astra Europa yet. So we are committed federalists. We don't think that established political parties are structurally going to lead to a European federation. There's 27 foreign ministers, 27 defense ministers, 27 heads of government, and for them to fuse all of their power into a greater whole, they would have to eliminate the offices that they currently hold, right? So national parties are really not incentivized to deliver a European federation, right? Their power literally depends on the continued fragmentation of the continent. And so we wanted something that is federalist first. Like success for us would mean European federation. That's our North Star. There are obviously existing federalist movements out there. Some are nonpartisan organizations that don't have electoral ambitions, which obviously has limits in what you can achieve, but ought to be, in our opinion, a political process that gets us there. And there are, of course, also like the ones that you mentioned, Volt, Ave Europa. They're conceptually similar pan-European movements with the aspiration and the newer ones to be parties that don't have that sort of structural issue of wanting to continue their national power bases. But they have their own political niche. You take Volt. I have followed their founding and success with immense interest. I think they're like the proof of concept for what we're trying to do. They're also obviously by far the most established and the most successful federalist movement today, and we look up to them. But politically speaking, it's just not my cup of tea. It's not the cup of tea of most of the people who started Astra Europa. It's probably not many other Europeans' cups of tea either. I'm a Renew type liberal myself, and many of us in Astra Europa fall somewhere on the liberal to center-right spectrum. So Volt, I'd say, is a relatively left progressive type project. There's variations within their policies and probably their national organizations, but they're aligned, right, with the Greens in the European Parliament. And that doesn't appeal to me. That doesn't appeal to many others. And federalism shouldn't be a choice. Oh, I'm a federalist, and therefore I'm supporting the one political group with one political sort of vision for a European federation. It's really important, we think, that there is the entire spectrum of European politics represented as a federalist option. So Volt has found a political niche, and others like us, we're trying to find our political niche somewhere else on the political spectrum.
Okay, thank you very much. So like a more concrete question, why do you think that the current structure of the European Union is incapable of meeting the challenges of the 21st century and this new world order, maybe?
So I think, or we think, that Europe's current system of government, so not even just the EU's system of governance, is buckling under the pressure of the challenges that we're facing in the 21st century. So that isn't really surprising, because the way that we've set up our governance is ultimately anchored in the 19th century political model of the nation state. And sure, we've augmented the model with supranational and intergovernmental integration at the European level, even at the international levels, after the lessons of the two world wars of the 20th century. And it served us relatively well then. But the fundamental building block, right, remains the same. It's the nation state. And I wouldn't really go as far as saying that the EU is fundamentally incapable of meeting the challenges of the 21st century, but its current structure, which a lot of the time depends on unanimity between 27 national governments, makes it maybe incapable of doing so in like a quick, effective, sometimes ambitious way. We're so often stuck with the lowest common denominator, right? Like the challenges of our time, like climate change, artificial intelligence, and the changes in the labor market that will, bring globalization. Obviously, been around for a while. Digital economy is only to name a few. Those are things that are very difficult to impossible to govern outside of the scale that Europe as a continent would have, or the EU can offer. So we can already, of course, issue recommendations. We can create directives, adopt regulations, but we don't have a government, and so our ability to govern is limited, and especially on issues like defense and foreign policy, industrial strategy. The experience of like the last couple of decades has shown that we've sort of reached the limit of what we can achieve with the structures that we've created today. And so I think that is a real problem for Europe. Like you mentioned, the Brave New World, like the end of the rules-based international order of the last 80 years that I think we are all seeing happening right now, kind of means the return of great power politics. And jury's out, but it may very well become one of the defining challenges of our generation. And when I think about what that is going to look like, I picture the leaders from powers like the US, China, Russia, India, many others, sitting down and deciding the future of the world. There is no single world leader who can represent all of us, right? The 450 million citizens of the European Union. Together, we are the third largest population bloc in the world. Divided, we don't even make the top 10. So, we could do a lot better for ourselves internationally if we work together. And the risk I see is just that we may not be at the table at all. And as they say, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And so we believe that it is imperative that we have a seat at the table of world powers. And to be able to have a seat at the table, we need to speak with one voice, not a cacophony of voices as we do today.
Okay, thank you very much. The next question is about, convincing people. You already had great arguments for a federal Europe. But at the same time, from a cultural side, how would you do it? Because, for example, in your manifesto, or I would say these 12 points on the website of Astra Europa, it's written that Europe needs something. Europeans need something worth defending and worth building. So, how would you convince the people that yes, Europe has things that are not that great nowadays. And the answer is not less Europe, but more Europe. So as a movement, how would you do this? Both from the social media side and from the side of the arguments themselves. Yeah.
All right. So convincing Europeans to federate, to move more power to the European level, it requires a number of things. But I think the most important thing that we can do is we need to be honest. And national sovereignty is mostly asserted, and often it can't be exercised. It can't be exercised outside of cooperation at the European level. And in our opinion, that isn't real sovereignty, right? Like, can a single European country on their own defend themselves against Russian aggression? Can a single European country on their own negotiate with the United States on an equal footing? Can it compete with Chinese industrial giants, with American big tech? Or can we hope as smaller countries to regulate them? And the honest answer is no. What we as nation states can do is too little, right? Like, national sovereignty in these domains is effectively a fiction. So the question is, do we want to replace it with something that is real? And second, we need to be mindful and respectful of the cultural sensitivities and feelings that people have for their national affiliation. I think that is real. And we're not proposing to abolish nations in favor of some homogenous European superstate, right? Like, we want a federation that respects the diversity of its constituent member states. We want to enable national constitutions. We want to allow national states to maintain their constitutional monarchies if they want to, protect their languages. Their education systems can stay national. Cultural life, all of these things, they're not intended to go away. A European federation is ultimately there to ensure that they can continue into the future effectively. And it sort of constitutionally also means that the federal government then should only really handle what really has to be handled at the federal level of work. It shouldn't get involved in trying to name a street in my neighborhood. That is, for the local level to deal with. But there are certain areas of politics, the high politics, defense, foreign policy, maybe even external borders, the internal market, where just the way those areas work, they work better at scale. And those are the things that the federal government should focus on, whereas the rest is left to lower levels. So subsidiarity, right? Like, decisions should be taken as close to the people as is possible. And that is something that we are committed to. And then lastly, we need to build democratic legitimacy. So we don't want to impose a European federation by decree. We want that to be a democratic choice. We want democracy at every level of the federation, right? There should be an elected European leader. We want there to be a bicameral parliament, obviously elected, one chamber representing the people, one representing the nation states, no vetoes. And we want clear sort of lines of authorities' rights, clear paths for citizens to participate. Like, we don't think that Europeans distrust European governance because they distrust Europe or fellow Europeans. They maybe distrusted today because the current system is kind of opaque and not always accountable enough. So we think that if you make it more democratic and more understandable, more accountable, then trust will follow. And Europeans can be convinced of the benefits of federation. And then they should have a vote to decide what they wanted to do.
Okay, thank you very much. You already spoke about sovereignty. And it's a really important question in the context of European federalism, or simply in the context of a more united Europe. And one of the means to reach it is, said to be the so-called united or common military of Europe or the European Union. First of all, do you support it? And if yes, do you support it in the framework of NATO? Because we can see what the Trump administration is doing in the last year, and it can like raise questions about the NATO itself. So yes, what do you think about this?
Yeah. So two things, right? What should our defense look like on the one hand, and what should our relationship be with NATO or the United States, right? So I think it is important that Europe is strategically autonomous. So we don't want to depend for our defense on America or any other outside power for that matter, right? But it doesn't mean that we need to establish ourselves against America, right? What we want is to be able to stand on our own 2 feet and to choose our partners. And I think it'd be great if we continue to have a friendly relationship with the United States and with other allies with whom we've been in a successful alliance for a really long time. But we also need to be realistic about where we are, right? Like the question of whether this breakdown in trust between the United States and Europe is a situation, or the question is whether it's a situation that is more like the drop chain on a bike, a quick fix, just kind of put it back, or whether it is something more serious. And our assessment is that it is something more serious. It's not a dropped chain. It's more like a cracked hub of the wheel, right? Like we're so dependent on NATO for common defense that really anything other than ironclad support by the United States for European security is not good enough, right? And the US with NATO serves like as the hub, so it's the core of the wheel, and then the spokes are all of the allies. And when the support given by the hub and the core breaks, then the entire wheel falls apart, and that's a terrible situation for us to be in, right? Like the U.S. administration is casting doubt about whether it would come to defense of European allies. That's not ironclad support, right? That falls short of the requirements that we would have to continue on in the path that we're going on. And what is even worse is the more recent sort of swaggering threats and against Denmark about acquiring Greenland, or the toying with the idea of turning Canada into the 52nd state. I think that is an incredible. Those are incredible statements that just unacceptable between allies. And so, unlike a drop chain, to go back to that metaphor, the only thing you can do with a cracked hub is a structural fault in a wheel. You throw it out and you replace it. So we'd be in favor long term of organizing European defense in sort of a unified European military with a European democratic accountability or civilian command above the military one. And in the meantime, perhaps, the steps to getting there is to replace the American hub of our defense coordination with a European hub, right? We need a structurally sound wheel of European defense. And once we have that, it's totally okay to take a European wheel and an American wheel and take a cart, and we can align the wheels and we can drive in the same direction. That's possible. But it gives us the choice to align rather than being dependent. I think that's super important.
Okay, thank you very much. The next question is about identity. So, simply the question is the following: who is European and what is European according to the Astra Europa movement?
Yeah, we're having a little bit of fun with it. We're sort of subscribing to this model of a European onion. So like an onion which has many layers, so European identity is sort of similar. You have a core of your local or regional identity, and around that there is a national, layer wrapped around it, and you have a European layer is sort of the outermost layer, and just like an onion, each layer provides protection to the next layer, but it's also what gives depth and structure to the whole onion. And just like an onion, I think European identity is pretty flavorful. So European identity doesn't replace any national identity, right? Like being Dutch, Irish, Polish, German, Hungarian, that is being European, right? We're not creating something new. We're just stating something that is already the case. Part of being Dutch, Irish, Polish, German, Hungarian is being European. And, we have a lot of commonalities that have emerged through centuries, millennia of exchange, conflict, memory renewal. We have lots of things in common from, our inheritance of classical antiquity, Christianity, although of course not every European is Christian, but we, have to state historically how important Christianity has been to this concept of a shared understanding of what Europe is, or who Europeans are. Humanism, the Enlightenment, the rule of law, so many things that are really uniquely, or not uniquely, but they have found their origin in Europe, and they are very important to what we consider as the foundation of a European identity. So who is European? Europeans are little cyclical, or self-referential logic. I think there is, depending on what model you look at, you'll find there is different definitions of what makes someone European. I don't necessarily think it's an exclusive concept. I think you can become European. You can be European ethnically, but not European culturally, and the other way around. So I think it's a complex question. Identity always is.
Okay, thank you very much. Connected to this topic, to European identity, how do you see migration? Because, for example, when I saw the comments, the comment section in your first post, the announcement that Astra Europa was born, I would say. Most of the comments were like, do you support remigration and the following? So yeah, what do you think about migration in Europe?
Yeah, so we're a really new movement. But I have to be upfront that we have some principles, and you can read those in our manifesto. We don't have a fully developed policy position on migration or asylum policy. And that's just the stage at which we are. And we'd rather take the time and give this topic the care that it deserves rather than rushing something out half-baked. So I can sort of share a little bit where we are at directionally, but it's a work in progress. So first, we want people to want to come to Europe. And that is because we want Europe to be a really great place to be. So we want to enable the world's best and brightest to come to Europe, to study, to work, to start businesses, and to have fulfilling lives as part of our communities. So we want to have a regular migration system that enables that, subject to criteria and conditions that we, the people who live in Europe, already determine. We believe in embracing and integrating everybody who's been given the right to be here, right, including awarding citizenship to immigrants who come here and integrate. We reject the idea of forcibly expelling migrants or citizens with a migration background on the basis of their ethnicity, race, or religion, which is this idea that sometimes is referred to as remigration. And like we believe the rule of law and protections against the arbitrary use of power, those are liberal democratic values, and we really strongly believe in them. So that answers that specific question. But beyond that, we are realistic. Like, we know we cannot welcome the entire world into Europe, even if we wanted to, which I'm not sure that we do. We know that regular migration needs to be selective, and irregular migration needs to be stopped. Right? So we believe in securing our borders. Now, seeking asylum is a universal human right, and we believe in granting protection to those who are genuinely in need of it. And we think that assisting refugees is a moral duty. It doesn't mean that it is an unlimited duty. So we propose an in-region principle for sheltering refugees. So we would want to work with international partners to structure international aid policy in such a way that refugees can hopefully find asylum closer to home. And the other thing is that applications for international protections that are made in Europe, they should be processed really quickly, and appeals should be handled really quickly. And people who are granted their application for protection or granted protection on the basis of their application, they should stay. And those who are found not to have a right to stay, they should be returned quickly. That seems to us like a humane way of dealing with it. So to summarize, right, like the manifesto that we've written, it says secure external borders, functioning return system, legal migration system that selects for skills we need, but also considers the ability of those who are coming here and the capability of the host society to integrate newcomers. And as we embark on defining our policy, we want to keep in mind empirical facts that when newcomers share linguistic, cultural proximity with a host society, there is going to be less bandwidth needed to integrate them. And more bandwidth is going to be needed where they don't share that proximity. And we just have to bear that in mind as we define the requirements for our regular migration system.
Okay, thank you very much. The next question is about a quote which can be found in your manifesto. So there it's said that the movement rejects both regressive nationalist populists and dogmatic illiberal progressives. What does that mean? So, for example, does it mean that it rejects, the topics related to or connected to identity politics coming from the US? Um, and who are these people? So, inside Europe, yes.
I think you hit the nail on the head. Like, basically, we reject identity politics on either side of the political spectrum, and we're not racist. We don't care what the color of your skin is, or whatever identity politics. But we also don't care who you love, or who you want to marry. Don't care, not as in like in a negative way, but like live and let live. But at the same time, those aren't necessarily always the most important issues to European voters. So we want to set our focus on the things that matter the most for most people day to day, and not get distracted with culture wars or the type of debates that ensue on some of these rather emotional topics for certain parts of the political spectrum. Kind of want to stick to what matters the most.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. But how would you make the people think about Europe culturally as well and consume more European things? Because if we could live in a European Federation, but at the same time, if every single series, movies, cultural products are coming from the US mainly, then we won't have this identity, and we still be influenced by the topics which were relevant in the US. So, for example, how would you build a European soft power, I would say? And how would you boost the feeling of Europeanness inside Europeans?
Yeah. I don't know that I have all the answers on behalf of the movement today. Again, we're relatively young. I'd say that we have really talented filmmakers and writers and media producers, whatever you might look at. They don't always have the chance to get the funding and the audience that they probably would be able to command. There are some notable exceptions. I think very funnily, sometimes they are seen and funded by American companies. I think Netflix has probably done quite well with some shows that I really love, who are written and produced by Europeans, and are really European in the issues that they cover. But maybe we need to ask ourselves, why is it that we struggle sometimes, and what can we do to change the environment to improve that? Now, as to, I think that would help with the feeling of belonging. I think what you're doing helps. How much of public debate that is really technically a European debate really takes place across borders. I live in Ireland. The news here are always through the lens of Ireland, and it's not even sometimes clear that the Irish discussion has an origin in a European debate. I think it would be great if we could break through that. And another thing, I suppose, is education, and people have to understand the context in which they live. They have to understand the context in which their culture has evolved. Maybe get an appreciation for other cultures, how they've historically intertwined. The achievement, frankly, of the past 80 years of European integration, and how cool it is that we are literally within the European Union in the longest period of time of peace that has ever been recorded in Europe amongst those countries that are part of the European Union. How cool it is that I, a German, and it's cool for me, but there's many like me. I, a German whose parents are German and Italian, I have studied in the Netherlands, and I worked in Belgium, and now I've moved to Ireland, and that's pretty remarkable, and I've felt home everywhere. We're promoting that type of exchange, of course, with programs like Erasmus. I think we should continue to do that. I don't even think that this is new. People have always traveled around Europe, right? As I mentioned earlier, the nation state is a 19th century invention. People were picking up and moving across borders all the time. And we are kind of finding our way back to what was the status quo, like maybe 1,000 years ago. And our cultures really live from the exchange, from trade, the sharing of ideas, the challenging of each other's ideas. And that's what makes us grow and better and more interesting.
Okay, thank you very much. So we were talking about the past, but I would like to ask you about the future. And now we are coming toward the end of the interview. So, how do you see the movement in 1 year and in 10 years? And what are the most important plans for the near future for the party or the movement?
Yeah. Well, we're obviously really, really young, so we have a lot of work cut out for us. So we're really just building the machine at the moment. So we've sort of launched publicly on Europe Day this year, and we were blown away by the positive response. We've, had thousands of views, thousands of followers, hundreds of signups to our newsletter. People really seem to have a fire in their belly for this project. And the number one task that we have is we want to get to a place where that fire in their bellies can be channeled into our shared goal, right? So we need to build our recruiting and vetting and onboarding pipeline. It's really boring operational stuff, but it's super important so that we can absorb new members meaningfully, right? Like there's no point of saying, oh yeah, sure, you can join in there in some group and nothing is really happening. And we spend all of our time moderating discussions that don't go anywhere. So we need to figure out how to organize this so that it can go somewhere. We need to establish legal entities across more European countries. So we have a few, but we need more. We need to formalize our governance. At the moment, we're just a bunch of people who work well together. We don't have a formal leadership. We're completely flat. I'm just one of the people involved. I don't hold any special office. We need to develop the technical and organizational infrastructure that a serious movement needs. And then we need to start fleshing out our policy positions. So that's probably like the next 12 months or so of work. And then over the longer term, say the next 10 years, our anchor goal is registration as a European political party through the authority of European political parties. So that requires us to have representation across at least a quarter of the EU member states. So we need to look at where do we want to focus, where will we have the most success at reaching the minimum requirements to reach that goal, and we will have to prioritize. We will talk to and seek out cooperation with like-minded organizations, maybe smaller parties that are out there that share our vision, or maybe even build from scratch where we can't find people to work with that have already learned and built something. But we are explicitly open to collaboration, right? And we want to contest elections, right? We're not doing this to be talking heads. We want to change something. The way you change something is to participate in the electoral politics across all levels of European governance, from local to European elections. So that's our goal in the next few years. And hopefully getting people excited and getting people involved, which we're hopefully soon there to be able to admit more members. In the meantime, we have a website where you can read about us. We have a newsletter, and hopefully soon we'll reach out with a call for volunteers. At the moment, we're really looking for people who will be able to help us build something, right? Not people who are joining and sitting passively. We need to roll up our sleeves and make this happen, or we won't go anywhere.
Okay, thank you very much. That would have been my question for people, like how can people join you? But you explained it well, so people can simply join through your website.
Well, they can't formally join yet, but they can sign up to our newsletter, and we will be in touch about what the options are. We do want to open up to people soon, but we want to do it in a way that is responsible, that we're not growing too fast and sort of lose our ability to be effective. And we just aren't there yet. We're too young to open up signups to everyone.
Yeah, I understand. Okay, then any last messages for the audience?
Let's go for the stars. Let's mine some asteroids. We've talked a lot about the past, but like the thing that is the coolest about what we're trying to do, I think, is just how positive we really are about the future. And we see the potential that we could reach if we join together and build a future together that we can dream about. Like, go outside. Maybe we build some new stuff that we actually like. Maybe go somewhere further away and see European rockets launching for the moon. Right? Like, we think about any project, however big it might be. It may seem unachievable today, but if we work together, there probably is no project in scale that we couldn't tackle. And there is some really, really cool stuff that we can do. So let's just go and do it. I'm sick and tired of looking over to other places that are doing the cool stuff that I want to do or that I want to see happening from here. And I don't want people to feel like they have to leave to realize their dreams, right? Like, let's make Europe the place to be, the place to stay.
Okay, thank you very much, Matthias, for participating in today's episode. And if you like the video, then please subscribe to our channel, follow us on Instagram, on TikTok. I think that these are our platforms. We won't use X because of various reasons. So yes, and follow Astra Europa if you would if you are interested. in the development of a new upcoming pan-European movement that would like to be a party in the future. So yes, thank you very much, and bye.